Hello, everyone. Welcome to Radio 5G. This is Michael Henry Dunn coming to you from 8,600 feet elevation in the beautiful mountains of Crestone, Colorado, and joined, as usual, by co-host Nancy Hopkins. Good morning, Nancy.
Good morning, and it's not me, it's Mark. making the background noises.
Okay, yeah, Mark needs to mute there. And our special guest, again today, we're very glad to welcome back Mark Steele, energy weapons expert and very courageous 5G activist over there in the UK, with an update on his battle over there for free speech and the rule of law, an update on his court case, and even more than that, a very detailed slideshow, which we're going to share with you all. We're going to share a link, and you can follow along. If you click on the link, you will be able to move from slide to slide as we go through the very specific science behind 5G and how the radiation works, how it is harmful, how it is played out through the various what you might call delivery systems that the telecom companies are using in order to pretty much impose this covertly on the public without precautionary safety and health studies. For example, just some new LED lights show up on your street, and inside those LED lights is a 5G system that's irradiating your family. So we are going to have a very informative, detailed exploration of the science behind all that. And then we have some exciting news to share with you about a sacred activism music tour currently hitting the Southwest and beyond in the coming days to wake people up to 5G and how we can all work together to roll it back and prevent this human rights and biosphere disaster. So with that, welcome back, Mark. It's great to have you back on the air with us.
It's great to be here. Yeah, and obviously we've got lots of news. I seem to be getting myself into lots of trouble. Well, I'm a bit of a troublemaker, as the local council have realised, and I'm not the sort of person that will be shut up easily. We just need a lot more people like me, a lot more people to get active. And the reason why I'm so active in relation to 5G is because I know what it is. And if people wake up to the fact of what 5G is, believe us, they'll get a little bit more exercise than what I will. All right. I've got to be pretty careful because of what I've done in the past and what's coming ahead of us. So somebody's got to be out there. The local authority tried to send me to prison. They started about a year ago, fabricated a lot of evidence against me. It came out in the court case where they tried to gag me. They sent 11 people to my home to make false witness testimony against me to have me gagged. Because what I was actually doing, I'd put on the internet the fact that they'd rolled out this illegal, unlawful technology and that it would kill people. Because that's what 5G is. 5G, by the way, for everybody out there who's new to this, 5G is not a telecoms communication system. It's a weapon. That's all it is. Now, obviously, that takes a lot of people to a place where they can't understand it. It's called cognitive dissonance, and that's why I say to everybody, do not believe a single word I say. Do your own research. Once you've done your research, then let's come back and have a conversation because, believers, you'll be on side. There are a number of videos out there. There's the Sasha Stone video, 5G Apocalypse. Watch it. It's real. It is like a film. You're in a film, and believers, you are fighting for your life. That's why I've been getting myself in a lot of trouble because I've been telling the truth. And obviously the truth to some people in some quarters doesn't go down very well. Doesn't go down very well at all. In fact, the recent case, the barrister said I was a madman. I was mad, all right. I'm mad when I live in a country where my government's just declared war, a secret war on the people. And not only a secret war on our people, but a secret war on the American citizen. This technology was developed in Germany. It was then taken to California. It was developed even more. Then the manufacturing base, one of the cheapest manufacturing bases in the world for this type of equipment, is China. But the let's say the hidden hand behind it, most certainly, a lot of the power base is based in the United Kingdom. So the technologies, the transmission networks, the hardware, it's all being orchestrated by a very, very, very small few. Very small few of very, very evil people. Monsters, that's what I call them, are monsters. So obviously you can understand it's a bit of an issue. The problem that I have with me, I'm an expert in this particular field. So where their barrister said I was a monster in the previous court case, the judge said I was very expert in this particular field and that the council must debate the 5G risk. They have not carried out that direction. What they've done is ran for the hills and said they don't have 5G. But the reason why they're saying I haven't got 5G, because as I told them in a council meeting in November 2017, when this comes out, they are going to prison. 5G is a weapon system, believe it or not. And I'll explain that to people as we go through these next few slides. And I'll give you some of my background, some of my expertise, because obviously I do get a lot of people out there who try and deflect or deceive. Massive deception about who I am, what I'm not. And that's because they are scrabbling. They are scratching like a cat in a bag. And unfortunately, the cat's out the bag. In the last court case, I mean, the judge, I pull out of me evidence bundle a document of showing a direct energy weapons antenna. And I say to the judge, yes, Your Honour. I said, well, that's a Jew. I says, I'll spell it for you. It's DEW, direct energy weapon. I says, well, you can imagine I was just as gobsmacked as what you are now when I realised that the local authority, using taxpayers' money, had actually installed a direct energy weapon outside my bedroom window. So that's probably the first time that has ever been referenced in a British court. A bit historical. What the judge commented on was that there was no mainstream media. The court was a 3-day court case. The court was rammed every day with supporters, my supporters, and not one mainstream media journalist, not one. They'd been all informed. This was the first 5G trial where the council were trying to get me sent to prison, trying to commit me to prison to shut me up. That's what was going on. This was an attack on free speech. This was an attack on the people. This is a massive cover-up. This is a human rights crime. This is the biggest crime ever to be perpetrated on the human race. That's what 5G is. 5G is bigger than the Holocaust.
Well, that's a pretty big statement, but, the scale of it, certainly, and the technology of it, that's a parallel in terms of the way the Nazis were using technology to do mass murder. Well, let's get to this link, and we've got it up here. We have 33 slides that we're going to take everybody through, and Mark has the energy weapons expert, and he is court certified, by the way, finally, after being challenged as an energy weapons expert, is going to take us through a lot of really informative, deep background on the science behind 5G and how it's being rolled out. So, this is going to be very helpful for all of us where, somebody says, oh, it's just ionized versus non-ionized. I saw in the New York Times, it's all safe. You people are all wacky conspiracy theorists. Just take a slide or two, some of the most informative slides that Mark is about to share with us all, and be able to come back to people and say, all right, well, the science, so-called science that you're seeing in mainstream media is not the truth. So let's start out with slide number 1 here.
right? This is one of my inventions. I've got a suite of inventions. I've had inventions from, lift boats, exiting tools, because obviously I'm in the oil and gas industry. I've got one of those minds that sees things possibly different to, let's say, a lot of other people. I see things, I see problems, so I see ways and solutions. So that's how most inventors, you see something, there needs to be a solution. This particular image is a waveguide. It's a binocular optical waveguide. And what that allows you to do is first and foremost be able to see behind you. But it was developed for a specific reason. It's a weapon sight. And what it's for the transference of electronic information from at a focal length. So obviously you have to have imagery at focal length so you can see it. So you can actually put a screen. There's a screen that goes into part of this invention in another invention. It's not yet. But that waveguide allows you to see at the near eye area the visual image. All right. Now, obviously, in this particular product, it's rear vision, but I can put a weapon sight in there. I can put an image in there. Now, the reason why you have to do that, first and foremost, it has to be binocular, because monocular visual systems damage your eyesight. You need focal length. So the screen has to be at a significant distance. But the biggest issue that you have with viewing things is optical radiation. All right. So visual information, radiation is extremely dangerous. Do you know we hear about these screens, blue emissions from screens and all that sort of stuff? Well, people have to understand that optical radiation carries with it, it's actually a known hazard. As a consequence, you've got to be pretty careful about it. So this was a safe way to give someone a head-up display system, because obviously I'd worked on a number of weapon sight systems in the past where what we used to retinal displays, where we really project optical radiation into the eye. That's not safe, right? And then what we used to do, we used to use a part of the spectrum, 560 nanometers, because it's less biologically active. That's why the weapon sight systems are green, and they're not for long-term use. And what we're trying to develop here was a patent, an invention, a binocular waveguide invention, so we could give you full spectrum imagery, because it's very difficult being to see something, whether or differentiate if you go away from the natural full spectrum optical radiation sight.
Right. Now, Mark, just excuse me for interrupting a second here, just so everybody's following along here. These are some of the inventions that you, as an energy weapons expert in this area, have yourself patented. And this is part of the background of, letting everyone know that, yeah, okay, it's good to be a human rights activist and the rule of law and free speech must be upheld. But your position and credibility on this issue, which were challenged in court, what you're sharing with us now with these slides is just some of your expertise in the patents you have created, some of which are related to what we're going to share with people about 5G, but that some of this is simply letting people know your familiarity with radiation and the various ways in which you have worked with it in your patents. Is that right?
Exactly. Well, if we leave that slide now and we go to slide 2, I'm going to explain a few things. This is the real product. All right. So this is a road approved, Department of Transport approved product. Everything you see in that image, whether it be the leathers on his back, the screen on the motorbike, the petrol in the tank, from the tires, the brakes, the gloves, the clothing, all fits with the standard. That helmet in particular is covered by UNIC 2205, Department of Transport, ACU approved to race on a track. Without those accreditations, you cannot use that product on a road. Not only can you not use it, you can't sell it. All products come with a test. The glass, your cup. Can you imagine buying you go out and you buy yourself a coffee cup, you take it home, you've just filled it up with hot coffee, and it just disintegrates in your hand and burns you. That's the reason why all products from cups, glass, spoons, toothbrush, that helmet, that motorbike. I mean, obviously, Department of Transport regulations are a little bit more stringent, but what I'm trying to explain to people is that everything has a standard. Everything's being tested for harm to a human. Because what we don't want is to build products that kill people. Killer tech, not safe. So the reason why these slides are in here, because obviously I do product development. I'm not just an inventor. It's no point just inventing things that can't be manufactured because they're dangerous. That would be absolutely ridiculous. What you don't want to do is kill your customer. Well, you don't want to kill him straight away.
Yeah. No, you definitely want to make the customer happy, and killing him is just so counterproductive for your business.
It's
Yeah.
an absolute waste of time. So the whole point of this invention was to actually build a head-up display system in a helmet that was safe. Because that optical waveguide had to act as a crumple zone. It couldn't actually offer any impact resistivity, which could be dangerous to the user under an impact. It was consideration before we actually did the full design. I mean, obviously we had the invention and I invented it, but there was a lot of work. There was £2 million worth of investment went into bringing that to market due to the extremely difficult environment that it actually operates in. But the real purpose for that waveguide was for the battle space, because I'd already worked on weapon sight systems, and what I knew to be a fact, on the battlefield, you need to be protected. Your head needs to be protected. Your eyesight needs to be protected because of the significant weaponry on the battle space. And I'm talking about microwave radiation, 5G.
Right. Okay. So excuse me for interrupting again, just to try to keep everybody with us on how this flows directly into the 5G issues and what came up in court, that what you're sharing with us, the patents that you worked on, as you say, these had to be safety tested. That image of the man on the motorcycle, every single piece of equipment was carefully researched and safety tested before being allowed to be certified and marketed, right? And what we're getting to, for example, if I don't know how far ahead we might jump here, but I'm jumped ahead to photo number 6, and then we're getting directly into how untested, unannounced, covert, illegal, covert rollout of 5G is, a cancer-causing technology has already been rolled out covertly without all of the customary safety assessments that are absolutely necessary, and that's what makes this whole thing illegal. Is that right, Mark?
That's absolutely correct. If you go to image 3, and I'll go quickly through these. We'll rattle through these pretty quickly. This is a head-up display system for the battle space. All right, and you'll see that the guy's got a binocular visual system, which not exactly safe because they aren't totally in unison with each other, so they'll damage his eyes. But it's a 560 nanometers spectrum. It's not retinal toxic. Now what I'll do, I'm going to go to the next image. The reason for that helmet is because of the dangers on the battlefield from microwave radiation. So people have to understand that radiation's really lethal. If I show you the next picture, this is number 4. Retinal cell viability from non-thermal optical radiation. Now what we're looking at here, right, is these are LEDs, and we're looking at cell survivability. Retina, these are human retinal cells in vitro, all right? If you look at the picture on the left-hand side at the bottom, you'll see retinal cell survivability from blue LED. It's near 20%. So that means it's just killed off 80% of the retinal cells. It's toxic. It's cellular toxic to your eyes. that's blue LED. Full spectrum LED, you can see it's just a little bit less than 40%. And if you look at the far right image, you'll see that there's very little damage done to the retinal cell from the green LED emitter. All right, so that shows you why. That's why the weapon sight system is in green. Now, we're talking about retinal cells where we're projecting optical radiation into the eye. All right, so this is why this is crucial, that weapon sight system is in green, and that was what we're overcoming with the waveguide. My invention was to actually overcome this problem, because obviously you don't have to look at everything in green. There's a problem, because there are other issues. If we go to image 4.
Now we're already at image 4. I think you're
Right,
talking about 5 now.
Yeah, 5, sorry. Yeah, image 5. Right, now this is really interesting. We'll all know what this is. Now this is a full spectrum projector, pulse modulated, full spectrum optical radiation projected onto the retina. There's a retinal display. Now, that's pretty an interesting image. And what I thought when I first came across this product, I thought, God, these guys are absolute genius. I mean, you're talking genius here. How do they do it? How are they actually delivering optical radiation in a monocular visual system into the eye? How are they doing that? Because obviously your eyes are inextricably linked, and if I use a monocular visual system, I'll damage your eyesight. It's well documented in science. It's well documented in laboratories where people used to use microscopes, monocular microscopes, and used to damage their eyesight. So I'm thinking, how have they done this? Is there some trickery? These guys are geniuses. This is unbelievable. I couldn't believe how fantastic I was thinking this is. Anyway, I spoke to a guy who was in Tokyo, and he said, I went out in the city, got back to my hotel room, and I had a residual image left on my retina for over 2 hours, and I couldn't get to sleep.
Wow.
Well, I knew how lethal that would be. I knew how dangerous that would be. I thought, that's quite interesting. And then I came across a scientist in America called Martin Blank. Professor Martin Blank, he'd done an awful lot of work at Columbia University, and he used to look at, phone radiation, and he was very concerned about this particular product because it had an antenna in the stem. Now, you'll know your own mobile phone. Your mobile phone emits radiation. It fails the test if the antenna is up against your head. So they always suggest that you never put the phone directly up against your head, you leave it off your head. But that's for a phone call that's possibly only been averaged out at about 6 minutes. This antenna, the same Part 15 FCC approved antenna, so basically not the most dangerous antenna, but it's the same type of antenna that's in your mobile phone. This one was strapped to your head, and it was going to be on for a little bit longer. And Martin did this work at Columbia about how dangerous this was. And I contacted Martin. I said, yes, that may be extremely dangerous, what you're talking about, and may absolutely fail all of the regulatory FCC standards and guidelines. But I said the most dangerous thing is pouring optical radiation directly into the eye, because you're talking about power in the photon energy levels 1,000 times more than what you see on average, thousands of times more than what you see in microwave radiation. So if you look at those two pictures on the right-hand side, there's some really interesting. Now that is a metallized coating. Now that looks very interesting to me, because obviously I've got a material sciences background. And that looks that delamination of that metal looks very uniform. That could be very, very interesting indeed. But if you can just imagine, that's a metal coating. What potentially damage could that optical radiation focused on the back of the eye be? Now, they call this killer tech, believe it or not. But what do they mean by that? do they literally mean it's going to kill you? Is that what they really mean when they call it killer tech? Because there's an argument for that. Anyway, let's move on to the next image. The next image is, these are the small transmitters. Now, there's a transmitter on the top of this light system. Yeah. These are optical radiation emitters, experimental. They're blue phosphor-coated LEDs. They are lethal. I mentioned before about this is bigger than the Holocaust. These lights have been fitted right across the West. I'm not joking when I'm going to say it, everybody. These will kill hundreds of millions of people. We're talking about the optical radiation here. We're not talking about the 5G. I'll come on to 5G in a minute. The optical radiation from these lights is absolutely lethal. These have got no diffuser on. They affect children. I sent to a friend of mine, there was a study done in Barcelona. The study's only been, the optical radiation emitters have only been in Barcelona for less than 3 years. They've doubled the breast and the prostate cancer. 20 institutions in Spain were involved in this study. Exeter University actually put it into the public domain in the UK. So we're talking about exposure to 3 years of this optical radiation that have doubled the breast and the prostate cancer. The epidemic's 15 to 20 year out. Now, I'm going to tell everybody, we don't stop 5G. We won't see any 20 or 30 year out. You'll be dead in 3 or 4 years' time if we allow this kill grid to be rolled out on top of us, because this piece of equipment, the LED streetlights here, are absolutely lethal. They're lethal to wildlife. They're lethal to life. They're lethal to biology. They will kill. These are pulsed square wave frequency blue phosphor-coated LEDs. You've just seen an image of the toxicity to retinal cells from blue LEDs. These are all over. They run them out in cityscapes right across the West. No test, no regulatory standards, all just, it'll be okay, don't worry about it. I'm going to tell everybody, this is part of the 5G kill grid. That's what it is. This will kill you. Not only will it kill you, it's already killing all small flying pollinators. Anything that's attracted to that light, it's got a 25 milliwatt transmitter on the top. So in the near field, anything that's attracted to that LED streetlight, it will annihilate them. The LED streetlights will annihilate them because they're a pulse square wave, but also the transmitter on the top will make short work of any living thing that gets within the near field.
Okay, just to jump in a second here, Mark. This is where, for a lot of people, we run into the cognitive dissonance. Now, probably not true for a lot of our audience who are listening, because we've got a pretty sophisticated audience in terms of understanding the real geopolitical situation, the corrupt elite factions, we'll call them, who are the puppeteers behind so many governments. But we are attracting a lot of newcomers as well. Our mission here at Radio 5G is not just to preach to the choir of those of us who already know, but to share all this information with people new to this understanding, who don't yet, they're hearing the science right now from an expert. They're looking, let me just wrap this up. They're looking at the science. They're hearing an expert. They're seeing, okay, it sounds like this guy knows what he's talking about. I'm looking at these slides. This looks pretty convincing. In the next slide, we're going into the government-sponsored corporate media lie about how, the powers that be are just assuring the telecom guys, no, don't worry about these conspiracy theories. It's all safe. And they're hiding the true information. Now, when you're talking about this is going to kill hundreds of millions of people, this is where, newcomers will run into cognitive dissonance and go, okay, now I got to believe you guys are crazy, because why would anybody want to kill hundreds of millions of people? They're killing their own customers and the energy systems, etc. So Excuse me. So the only reason I bring this up at this point, because I don't want to delay us, there's a lot of important information to go through with these slides. But, it doesn't take a whole lot of research to understand that there has been a quite explicit depopulation agenda on the part of very well-known ruling elite factions, from organizations associated with the UN and the Trilateral Commission, and quite unabashed statements about the need to reduce the global population to something manageable, and exactly how that would be accomplished. Henry Kissinger's famous quote about, well, we need to get rid of all the useless eaters, he called them. So who determines who's a useless eater and who's not? It looks like the last photos I could see, Henry could do with a little less eating himself. But the reason I bring this up at this point is just none of us like to face the fact that we live in a world where there is this agenda, but you don't have to look very hard to find that the evidence is out there. And even if you're listening, folks, and you're having a hard time buying this, set it aside. Set aside the idea that you have to buy the notion that there's some incredibly corrupt, satanic elite that is looking to depopulate the world. Just pay attention to the science. Just pay attention to what is fact out there, what this technology is. The epidemiological studies, as Mark has just cited in Barcelona, that are already demonstrating doubled rates of cancer. These are the facts on the ground. This is what we need to focus on and roll back and stop. Believe what you want to believe about a secret world government or depopulation agenda. Sign on to that or not as you please, but let's deal with the facts, folks, and we can and will roll this back. So with that, Mark, thanks for letting me just put that piece in there, and if let's move on to the next slide.
Well, that's why I always say to people, do your own research, because obviously I paint a picture. Obviously, I've got a 30-year background in science and technology. I'm as surprised as everybody. I mean, the next picture surprised me more than anything. This picture, right, is quite interesting. This is the antenna. This is the antenna on the top of those lights. This is the bit that's hiding underneath what looks like an innocuous dipole antenna. The bit on the right-hand side, this green bit with the copper strips, what's called a high gain. It's a high gain antenna. All right, that means it can actually... it's got a focusing potential. So basically it can actually see in a certain direction. All right, it's directional. So if you look at the little nub at the end, because that's the bit that really got my interest up, that's called a dew. And what that is, it's a focus. It's not a very good picture, this. I've got better images of it. It's actually how you focus, very, very much how you focus a lens. That's a lens, like a teardrop lens, all right? And that allows you, in exactly the same way as a laser, that allows you to focus a signal at a target. So you're
talking about a DEW, a DEW is a directed energy weapon. Just want to throw that in there.
That's exactly what that is. That antenna has two parts to it. It's got a target acquiring part, which is the copper strip, but it also has a focusing signal part, which is actually called a DEW, direct energy weapon. So that's what that is. Now, obviously, in my locality, this is my local council, have rolled these out, hiding underneath these control management systems. Now, obviously, the control management systems aren't working. The lights are on because obviously it's not its main. It's this piece of equipment's primary function is to target, acquire, and shoot. If you look at the image on the left-hand side, this is from the company, and the company states this can look into your bin. You can actually scan its environment. That's the target acquiring bit. What it doesn't tell you, Nate, is how it shoots a signal, how it actually focuses a signal. This is part of 5G. So if we go to the next image, because a lot of people find that absolutely unbelievable. Well, we're going to explain to you how your local councils and your local government are out of control. This is an LED street lighting array, all right? And you'll see those lights. There's no protection. There's no diffuser. That causes glare. Glare's pretty dangerous, all right? But this is what's called a Category 2 risk group optical radiation emitter. That means you cannot look at it. You cannot look at this product. It cannot catch your eye. If this product catches your eye, the radiation from it, it will damage your eyesight. It will destroy, it will cause retinal cell toxicity, and it will also cause macular degeneration. They're putting these lights up all over the West, in your towns, in your villages. Has anybody warned anybody? You need to wear protective eyewear when you're anywhere near them. I wear protective eyewear all the time. People have seen the pictures. Obviously, I wear them because there's a weapon system called Assassin where they can pulse modulate the screen at you. It's a very sophisticated weapon. And obviously, I've got to look after myself. So when I'm on the screen, I always wear protective eyewear. But when I'm out and about and these lights are on, I also wear reflective protective eyewear because these are lethal. Now, to put it into perspective, AMA, Medical Association, have got a fantastic 2016, they did a scientific study on this. They're lethal. ANSIS, French public health body, have just released another project, another research paper on these. They're lethal. SHEA, the emerging risk team from Europe, risky to children. Public Health England, risky to children. So ask yourself the question, why are your local authorities, your local government rolling out technology that they have already been told is dangerous to the environment and to you and to your children? Why are they doing it?
Well, wouldn't the question be, I mean, from what you're telling me, you're showing us the text where they've whitewashed the information, and you're pointing out the fact that there are studies that show it's lethal or dangerous. Yeah. But chances are that the local authorities, they're not getting information from the telecom companies and the higher-ups when this stuff rolls out. They're not being told, oh, by the way, here are the 3 studies that prove that the things we're about to deploy in your neighborhood covertly actually are lethal. They're getting the whitewashed information, right? No, I mean, they're not being, okay, some of these folks may be corrupt, some of these folks may be compromised, etc. But, it's unlikely that they have been given the specific information about the lethality of this, right?
We had 60 councillors, the latest court case, I sent 60 councillors, because obviously the first court case didn't go very well for them. They said I was a conspiracy theorist. The judge said I was a very expert, and I was legally qualified to talk on this particular subject. He also stated that the science I presented to the court was also expert, all right? That council, not one single councillor has contacted me, not one. Each one, I sent an email. I sent one email to 60 councillors, not one single reply. And what I said in that email was, do your duty. The law states this, you have to. The court had already stated that they must debate the 5G risk with me. Not one reply. So these people are responsible. These people are most certainly responsible. Not one reply, because what's actually happened over the last 20 or 30 years, we've ended up with some of the stupidest, greediest, self-serving, ignorant people in all these positions of power. And unfortunately, they don't care. And not only do they not care, they're not interested, because if I'd had at least one councillor out of 60 councillors, not one reply, all I got was a knock at the door by the police to take me back to court, to send me to prison, because they said that the email I sent was threatening. Well, it was only basically threatening them to send them to prison for not doing that job. And that's what
right. Yeah, you can't call that a threat. If anything, it's a helpful warning. Because you may not be aware that the actions you're taking are in violation of the law and that people die, you could end up not only, going to prison, you could be held personally liable. You could lose your home and your savings and go to prison. That's a helpful warning. That's not, a terrorist threat. I mean, in my book, that's like, oh, well, thank you. But as you say, when we're dealing with people who are perhaps not the sharpest knives in the drawer to begin with and are corruptible, and they've already been shown up in court, the guy they label a madman, the judge says he's an expert. So folks like that are not likely to be terribly eager to say, oh, yes, do please send us more information to show what ignorant, greedy, corrupt people we are so that I can tell my constituents how badly we screwed up. That's not likely to happen. It's, not terribly surprising.
That's exactly what's going on. What happened, right? It's that bad. They're just covering up. I mean, this is like Jimmy Savile. It's like Hillsborough, all these massive cover-ups, a bit like 9/11. It's that bad. Everybody's running for the hills. The next image shows the Health and Social Care Act 2012. This is the law. The law in the UK states quite clearly that the Secretary of State has a duty to protect the population from non-ionising radiation. All right? If you look at the image on the right-hand side, you see this is about the LED streetlights. May double cancer risk. Not a may, they do double the cancer risk. And this is only up a couple of years. So the more you get exposed to this optical radiation, the more cancer you develop. But if you look at that picture of the light, you see the glare, that's illegal. So they're fitting illegal fitments, experimental technology, because obviously this LED blue phosphor-coated emission is experimental. The pulsed modulation of it is pretty dangerous. Consequently, they're breaking the law. The law has absolutely been thrown in the toilet. We'll go back and reference before about standards. What's the point of having standards when your local authority can roll out a technology that will murder the population? Now, they may be stupid, but unfortunately the councillors where I live, they have had all of the scientific and documentary evidence from me to show that this is a crime, and not one reply. Well, that tells you, and it tells everybody out there, nobody's coming to the rescue. It's up to us.
Right. Let me ask you a question here, Mark. Now, I'm seeing some of this that indicates this is like, for example, the Council of Europe in 2011, and we're seeing Assemblée Parlementaire. Is this, to what extent is Brexit coming into the picture here in terms of EU law versus UK law, in terms of the enforceability of what may be now European standards in terms of UK law? And, with Brexit being such a mess, of course, does this come into play in your situation or in similar situations that might arise for people who are attempting to hold people accountable to these laws?
Well, no, because the Council of Europe is actually the international courts, and we are all signatories to that. I'm not sure if the US is, but Europeans. This all came out after the Second World War. The Council of Europe was actually set up in Nuremberg. It was set up to hang the Nazis for very similar, for the atrocities that were perpetrated on people in the camps. So a lot of this technology was actually tested on people in the camps. Very similar types of experiments were carried out. It was a 2.5 gigahertz signal that they realised could cause diabetes. So obviously that's in your Wi-Fi. So you get a Wi-Fi signal in your home to give you diabetes. That's quite interesting, isn't it? Anyway, the international courts, the 1815 resolution was actually about the levels of radiation that you can be exposed to. The Bioinitiative report said 30 millivolts. They say that's about a max. Council of Europe have taken a more pragmatic view, and they've said 200. With a maximum of 600 for a very short period of time. There isn't a single home in Gateshead we've measured under 600 millivolts, not one single home. And that's the maximum. That's in breach of the building regulations and codes. That's in breach of the law. This is a direction from a court, from the international courts, they're in breach of And this is your local authorities. And that's why you've got councillors running for the hills pretending that they haven't received. Well, unfortunately, they cannot deny that they've received my email because they put a complaint in and had the police at the door arresting me and take me off to court and try and send me to prison.
Yeah, this is exactly what we are looking at here in the Southwest in the U.S. In New Mexico, coming up on June 11th, there's going to be a county commissioners meeting in Taos, New Mexico, and we will very specifically be letting these folks know, hey, you're civil servants, you're doing your best here. You need to know that your plausible deniability is about to disappear right now. You will not again be able to say, oh, you didn't know, because this is hard science. We have a number of expert witnesses who are going to testify at this county commissioners meeting, and their plausible deniability is gone, and their legal vulnerability has just gone way up. So we're looking at 10 minutes before the hour, and I'd love for us to be able to get to all these slides. We're on, I think, just only on image 9. So if we can jump ahead to some of the more high-impact stuff.
Well, if we go to the next image is really important. What I'll do, I'll flick through them quite quickly. Right, IC and IRP guidelines. These are the guidelines that all of the regulatory bodies around the world are relying on. IC and IRP are saying do not rely. It says these are not the last word on the issue. They are not defensive world for industry or others. So why are government agencies in the West using them? This is in the
right. Excuse me, Mark. So we're looking, just so everybody knows, we're looking at photo 11 on your slideshow there.
We'll flick to the next one. This is 5G weaponry on the battle space. Just some images there of some military equipment. The next image is 5G in the cityscape. This is radar. This is weapons capability radar. All right, that's what it.
We're looking at photo 13 now, Mark.
I think so. The next image is a 3D mapping image. Yeah. Can everybody see that?
It says 5G neural networks and their battlefield radar application at the top, or are we on to the next one?
Yeah, on the next one.
Okay, photo 14 then, right? Yeah. Microwave radar 3D mapping.
Right. This is what the scanner, the image I showed before, that small antenna. This is what it can see. So it's basically a target acquirement. It's for urban environment interrogation. Sub-gigahertz signals, because 5G is not these higher frequency waveforms. Let's get that out of the way. All right. Everybody talks about higher frequency, doesn't travel very well. No, 5G is sub-gig. The main rollout of it, the blanket coverage is sub-gigahertz. And what it's allowed us to do is to look deeply into the urban environment. That's 3D mapping. That's radar. That's off the battle space, but it's for the urban environment interrogation. And that's an image of a very similar transmitter to you saw early on, the little green thing with a copper strip. The next image.
Just quickly, Mark, let me just drop something in here, which is that in Taos, when some of our activists there approached some of the city council, they said, well, I'm sorry, this 5G thing, this is being rolled out, woven into our 911 emergency response system. And you don't want us to not be able to know exactly where you are in your house when you're having a heart attack, do you? And so what you're showing us is exactly that. This is not about you getting faster downloads for your favorite TV show. This is about they will know where you are at all times. And, our people respond to them and said, okay, if you're worried about lawsuits, about a heart attack in some instance where somebody's like in a closet and not in the bathroom, and they can't get to them in time, well, you haven't begun to dream about the kind of lawsuits that you personally will be dealing with for approving this deadly technology. So anyway, just wanted to point that out.
Yeah. Well, that technology will give you a heart attack. I'll show you later on heart damage from that particular signal. This is some of the battlefield weaponry, and the reason for this is because the toxicity from this weapon system on the battlefield, it's getting that toxic. Troops can't be there. Troops can't act in those fields now because that's that toxic. So if we go to the next one, this is 5G being tested in South Korea as a weapon. Target acquiring wild boar in the jungle and firing a signal at them using that dew. The the little lens at the end of the antenna. Now, obviously, there's a few ways you can actually deliver a focused signal. That's just one of them, but there's a few other ways by doing an off-step signal. So we'll go to the next image. This is blood. This is human bloods exposed to smart meters. All right. So if you look at the images on the left, that's
okay.
blood.
Just quickly, Mark, we're looking at photo number 17.
Are they, yeah, with the smart meter bloods, yeah, they're like little bubbly things, yeah. On the left-hand side, you've got bloods before the meter's switched on. As soon as the meter's switched on in 2 minutes, you can start to see the damage to the blood. All right? That's what your smart meter's doing to you in your home as we speak. The right-hand picture is relay. This is where the blood starts to stack and become sticky. All right? So if you go to the next picture, this is children in Gateshead from the 5G, from the illegal, unlawful fitting of this 5G. We've got children bleeding from the nose, a crime against humanity. I've had police officers at my door about these images and have refused to take the evidence from me. I've explained to them what's happening. I've explained that this is administration of it's administering of a noxious substance, and these children are suffering what radar operators suffer, nosebleeds, will not act against this crime against us. The next image, as you were saying before, this is non-thermal microwave radiation, and this is heart imagery. This is what microwaves do to your heart. You see the damage on the right-hand side? Well, the phased array radar that they've just stuck outside your bedroom in your 5G, that's what it does to your heart. It's worse than this, because this is actually this is a 3G transmitter. It's not a 5G transmitter. 5G transmitters are a lot more dangerous than this, I can tell you. And obviously the picture on the right, you see a heart cancer there. Now, obviously these are in rats, but this shows how dangerous this equipment is. Without a doubt, this shows how dangerous it is. The next image, brain tumours now the most frequent form of cancer in the US in adolescents. Where do people think it's coming from? Where do they think this is coming from? These massive cancer, these cancer increases in brain cancers in the US, miscarriage rates, triple for women with top radiation exposures. This was a really interesting study which showed women that were near Wi-Fi, if they were in offices with Wi-Fi, the chance of them miscarrying went up by 300%. And I mean, nobody is really covering it. Now, this is a smoking gun. What we see here is the increase in young women suffering from stroke. Now, think about how catastrophic that is to an economy. The personal tragedy, but think about it from an economic terrorist attack.
We're on photo 21 right now.
Yeah, if I wanted to attack a country, what better way than put up a load of telecoms transmitters, and especially if they're owned by a foreign company or organisation, and then I start to give all the young women strokes. So apart from all the other biological DNA damage, attacking their fertility, etc., make them ill. We give them a stroke. They're not really going to go to work, are they? I mean, what's going on here? And the smoke and gun here, how we know this is microwave radiation. From the same geolocations, in the same period of time, the increase in young men was 15%. Even though that's horrendous, the 30% increase in young women tells me microwave radiation as the cause, and it's because body density mitigates the impact of microwave radiation in young women. By and large, have got smaller heads than men. And that is one of the only defences we have against microwave radiation, your own body density. So the bigger you are, the better chance you have. But obviously young women, smaller heads on average, consequently more damage. And this is absolutely indicative of what microwave radiation is capable of delivering. The next image, this is Professor Martin L. Pal. Anybody wants to do any research into this subject, neurological disorders, depression, Martin's the guy. I'm not going to labour this, but if anybody wants to get up to speed, just research Martin Pal. He's got some fantastic videos on YouTube where he does lectures. Great guy, absolutely on message here. And obviously we'll see massive increases. See the next picture. This is the recent epidemiological data. Self-harming young kids, young girls in particular, 13 to 16, up to 68% increase in 3 years. Where do they think it's coming from? It's microwave radiation, dementia. Now Britain's biggest killer, overtaking heart disease for the first time. And we've got the medical community scratching their heads going, hey, well, what could this be? Could this be a diesel car? Well, I'm going to tell you, and I'll dispel that immediately. During the 60s and 70s, when smog in London was absolutely lethal and people died, they weren't suffering from dementia. This is when people had coal fires in the UK. When people heated their homes using coal in London, the smog was lethal. It would kill you. But what it didn't do is give you dementia, and people weren't killing themselves or suffering neurological distress or having nosebleeds or actually having bleeding from the eyes. In fact, a recent study in Bangkok, people increase in nosebleeds, bleeding from the eyes, bleeding from the ears, bleeding from the anus, bleeding in all different parts of their body, and some idiot in the mainstream media is trying to blame diesel cars. I mean, this just shows the deception, the dishonest reporting by the media about how diesel vehicles are causing that illness. Well, diesel cars don't cause eye bleeds. They don't cause nosebleeds, but I know what does. Microwave radiation. That's what causes it. The next image.
Can we hang on a sec here, Mark, because we're at the hour. So we're going to need to take our hour break here. This is Radio 5G with Michael Henry Dunn and Nancy Hopkins interviewing Mark Steele. We're going to take a little break, have some inspiring music, and come on back to us, folks. We'll continue this great information for you. All right. Welcome back, everybody, to Radio 5G, a Cosmic Reality Radio Network production. This is Michael Henry Dunn, back here with my co-host Nancy Hopkins and our special guest Mark Steele, who is sharing with us some pretty gut-wrenching information. If you are following along with the link we provided to the slideshow, we are on photo number 23, describing how dementia is now Britain's biggest killer, and self-harm among girls aged 13 to 16. So that basically self-harm is a code word for cutting, teenagers who cut themselves. Obviously, that can turn out suicide sometimes. Rose 68% among girls aged 13 to 16 in a 3-year period, and dementia is now Britain's biggest killer. So this is photo number 23. This is directly linked to harm from non-thermal, non-ionizing radiation. So if you could pick it up from there, Mark, and take us on.
Yeah, sure. Well, if everybody goes to photo 24, and photo 24 shows a Trojan horse. I mean, obviously everybody can see the horse. That's what 5G is. 5G, there is no profit in 5G. Let's get that out of the way. This is economic terrorism against the West. This is a plan to take down the economic viability of the West. This is a weapon system, so it causes neurological disorders, stroke in young, stops people from being able to think for themselves, because obviously there's a whole mind-bending set of weaponry that can be used against you to subdue you, to control your thought systems and patterns once this thing is fully operational. But it's not about that. This system can be hacked. It can be hacked by anybody, because the systems, there's no real security. We already know that. because obviously the US military's battlefield Win-T, their main centralised system is being compromised. So if the US military can't control their systems, I can tell you now, no local authority or no government can control theirs if the US military can't control theirs. So
you jumped ahead to photo 25. Then we're talking about hackers being able to actually, let me understand this. So we're assuming the system is, rolled out, it's live, it's everywhere, and there may be a corrupt centralized elite up there that has their own depopulation agenda or whatever. What you're saying is that this could also be hacked by individual bad actors, as we'll call them, or some other local agenda. That you're saying that these can be hacked and used by anybody who is a decent hacker. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Well, I can come along and see if you're in your house. I can not only that 3D map, I can see where you've hidden your sovereigns, if you've got any gold, if you've got any nice Rolex watches, where your weapons are hidden. I can actually configure in my computer the shape of your weapon. So let's say I'm looking for a specific weapon, because you see the urban environment, the 3D mapping image I showed you before. What that's specifically for is for looking for certain weaponry in the urban environment. So I can actually put a 3D sort of scanned image in a computer that will then scan the urban environment and pick out, let's say I was looking for a Kalashnikov. This is 3D mapping, so I can look into the urban environment right the way through everything, including concrete, you name it, I can look through it. There's a few ways you can protect yourself, but not many. You can basically look, and what it's looking for is that Kalashnikov. So I can find the Kalashnikov, or I can find your sovereigns or your Rolex watches or anything you want to hide. Maybe if you stick them in the ground, put them in a concrete box or with a bit of lead lining, but then I'll be able to see where you've got your box. So anyway, this is total dystopian, and this could be your local burglar. This doesn't have to be the North Korean military or the Chinese military. Probably could be the Chinese military. They might be wanting to look. They might want your gold. I don't know. When they come tromping down your street, I mean, we're not really sure. But this is a dystopian world. So there's no real security. If we go to the next image, these are secret contracts in local authorities in the United Kingdom where they're chopping down all the trees. They're taking the trees out. So you've got the police here protecting the people chopping the trees down. You'll see that light on the left-hand side. So there's the image on the left. The image on the left, that light's a 5G light. It's an LED street light, and it's actually got a Telensa 5G transmitter on the top. The reason why the trees have to come out is because they take the energy to ground. Now, if I'm going to use this as an EMP weapon, as was used in Paradise, was used in South Korea recently, if I want to take these buildings out using an electromagnetic pulse, then what I need to do is get rid of the trees, because the trees take the earth, and I won't be able to kill everybody, and I won't be able to take all those buildings out. I'll be able to take quite a few out, but I might get them all. So we're going to annihilate everybody, because that's what this is. This is a weapon system. It is a full densification weapon. 5G, one of its main technical parameters is densification, and that densification is part of the kill grid. So the removal of trees really important, because obviously if they get wet, it's a problem. They cannot scan you, and they can't target acquire you, and they cannot shoot you. That would be difficult as well. But as an EMP, the other part of the weapon, then that's also another issue.
Mark, let me interrupt you for a second, because if those trees were to sit there long enough, they would be killed by the 5G anyway, correct?
It'll kill them anyway. Yeah, it takes the bark, because obviously they're taking the radiation to ground. When they get wet, it bursts the bark off. People will see it, so they'll have to come out, because obviously it becomes pretty obvious to people. And also, they've killed all the birds anyway. So people will be thinking, well, where's all the birds gone? Well, if the trees are gone, then people aren't going to. They'll say, oh, well, it's because with trees taken out. There'll be some excuse. There's some sort of narrative. A guy one of the streets where these trees were totally stripped and chopped down, he actually rang the council and said, look, you've just destroyed these trees outside me home and the place looks absolutely shocking. Can you tell me what he is up to? Do you know what he was told? We don't know. He's actually getting a reply off them to say they don't know why they're chopping all the trees down, but they're being told from above just to do it. Well, it's an environmental crime.
Yeah, let me understand, Mark. So they are legally authorized to be able to take the trees down once the 5G and the LED lights has killed them. It's like, oh, it's a dead tree. We get to take it down now. That's the scenario, right?
Well, that's a scenario. Well, what they're doing here, they're hard cutting them back to kill them anyway. You know, if you damage these trees, the way these have been pruned, they're not pulled. These aren't pulled trees. When you pull a tree, you've got to leave the stem. You've got to leave some of the branch stem on. They've trimmed these right off, cut them right back. So what happens? These trees will die, and then it gives them an excuse to come back and then chop them out. But they're chopping them out anyway. They've removed. They had a plan. There's a secret contract with Sheffield City Council in Amy. Right, Amy had a contract to remove 30,000 trees. No public consultation. Secret $2 billion contract to put 5G transmitters in and chop down all the trees in the city. These are secret government contracts with technology companies to put 5G into cityscapes, and nobody is being told.
Okay, let me ask you, Mark, a question that our listeners will probably have. How do you know about the secret contracts?
Well, it's South Yorkshire Post, one of the main papers, wrote to Sheffield Council and asked for the contract. And that contract, they've actually refused to release the date on the contract, and then the whistleblower has actually released it, and it was a £2 billion contract with Amy to remove 30,000 trees, and that's why they didn't want it to be seen. So we've got these fascists, or we'll call them national socialists, Nazis, operating in these councils. I mean, this is not only a takedown of your trees and trying to kill everybody, this is the final solution. They're working towards an agenda to kill.
Okay, let me ask you this. So when this information became public about a £2 billion contract to take down 30,000 trees, was there a public outcry, and were the trees removed anyway?
No. They've called a moratorium. They've stopped chopping the trees down. But I'll tell you now, these criminals, they'll just come back in the deep of night. You know what we've found is what they do. There's been a massive public outcry in Sheffield. They stop chopping the trees out, and then what's going to happen? A few months down the line, they'll probably take a few of the activists out. You know, probably imprison them, send them to prison, like what they did with me. And then the next minute, they'll start again. They'll just start again. People have to remember this agenda. They have had this agenda on the table for many, many years. And you see those police officers, they are acting, that's a crime. They are taking down trees that damage the environment, right? They are acting outside of the law. They're acting on behalf of a council that's out of control, breaking the law, and acting on behalf of a technology company that's running out the technology that is absolutely illegal. That's what's going on in this country, and it's coming all over the West. There's an agenda, and what we need to do, we need to wake these idiots up. We need to give them a shake and go, look, this is what's happening. I mean, the best laugh about this, the police are the target. Once this system is fully operational, it is a command and control takeout. It takes GCHQ out, it takes Faslane out, it takes all the facilities. Whenever you attack a country, I mean, come on. If you're going to attack a country, you take that command and control out first. It's the first thing you do. And I've looked at the weaponry, and that's exactly what it's for. It's over the horizon weapon systems. I mean, that's what they are. That's why they're putting the satellites up. The satellites are a reflection in the sky. There's command and control takeout. they're not bothered about killing the people. Well, they are bothered about killing the people, but not today. The first people to take out are your control systems. So all those coppers stand on that front line, letting those trees get chopped down on behalf of these criminal enterprises. They're the target. It's amazing, isn't it?
That's what I'm seeing here. We are working with local law enforcement, local municipality officials who are in sympathy with the Constitution, who are in sympathy with what's going on, who understand. And to think that these good men and women, who will sometimes be forced to, as you can see here in these pictures, to protect workers who are taking down trees or putting up lethal 5G systems, that ironically, they will actually be targeted themselves at a certain stage of this agenda where we don't want local authorities who are in sympathy with the people who understand what's going on to be in the way of the implementation of the agenda. Is that what you're saying?
They would certainly are. They're the target. I mean, I was having a bit of a giggle to myself about it. In fact, when I was talking to the AV9 about this particular thing, obviously a lot of spies at that particular event. There's a lot of very, very interesting people get in and say some very, very interesting things. And when I finished it, I got to the end of the talk and I said, the really funny thing, I says, a lot of spies will be here today. I says, you've got to understand, you are the target. I can actually show you the weapon system and how it actually works. For some inexplicable reason, I just know quite a bit about weapons. And, and that's really, it sort of makes me have a bit of a giggle. It's a bit of it's funny, really.
It's a sad giggle, but it is a giggle.
Well, they're the architects of their own demise. These people are building out this equipment and allowing it to happen, and they're the target. I mean, that's how crazy it is.
Wow. Can we jump ahead here? Just want to make sure we get everything covered.
Right, next one, we're talking about black cabs here. Now, obviously, nobody wants to live underneath these power cables. But why would you buy an electric car? An electric car, the tests, the exposure to a human and the tests on these vehicles are the 30 minutes. So obviously, if you're doing a 30-minute drive, it's only going to knock a few years off your life expectancy, maybe give your kids leukemia. Would you buy an electric car? These electric cars are being forced on people through fiscal policy, through taxation, etc., through these climate nonsense. They are dirtier than dirty diesels. They put more particulate contaminants in air. Now, I know people will go, hang on a minute, what is he saying there? That doesn't sound correct. Well, listen to this. That vehicle's that heavy, it eats those tyres. The rubber, right, actually goes into the air as particulate contaminant. There's more particulate contaminants of those tyres on that electric vehicle that comes out that dirty diesel behind it. Not only that, you've got the braking system, other toxic material, and you've got the tarmac on the road. The tarmac on the road, it's the dirtiest part of the bottom of the Kraken Tower. It's radioactive, by the way. Dirty, very, very dirty business. All has to be replaced, so you need roads. Roads need to be replaced a lot more often. You've got tyres, which you have to get very, very not environmentally friendly. So you burn the tyres off, you burn the tarmac down, you burn the braking system, you're putting more particulate contaminants in the atmosphere from the electric car, and then you've got the next problem that you have with electric cars. So we'll go to the next slide, 4-28. Tesla, fires. Anybody that gets into an electric car and you get yourself a bit of a fire, if I was a 999 responder and somebody rang us and says electric car fire, I would run the other way because it's toxic. You don't have the protective equipment, you don't have the protective body equipment. It's a hazmat issue, and that toxic material from the battery will travel through your skin and kill you. It's lethal. Lithium ion on fire is absolutely lethal. So we're taking all that lithium ion out of the ground. It's extremely dirty, filthy business. happens in China for obvious reasons. You wouldn't be able to build them in America because obviously the EPA regulations are far too stringent to be able to get away with that, and the damage on the environment is pretty catastrophic. However, they take these raw earth metals out of the ground, make these batteries. They are absolutely lethal. And if you set fire to one, and there has been quite a few fires, you've got yourself a hazmat issue. Now, the cleanup runs into the tens of millions. In a cityscape, could run into the hundreds of millions, because this is like a dirty bomb. So, you know, when people talk about dirty bombs, remember we had all that nonsense about dirty bombs? Well, you set an electric car off, and especially if it's fully charged in a cityscape, it's like a dirty bomb. Nobody's talking about it. There's been no regulations. Nobody's talking about the danger to 999 responders. Or what do you call them? It's
911, 911.
Yeah, 911.
Yeah. So to try to keep the focus on the 5G aspect of it here in the next slide, photo 29, because we're talking about millimeter wave radiation. You're addressing how automobile radar also have a toxic radiation overburden, right?
All autonomous, the whole autonomous 5G network, it's all integrated with the electric cars, the autonomous cars, the Tesla autonomous vehicle. It's all part of 5G. It's all part of the 5G mix. Now, these particular vehicles, what I'm going to explain to people here is how autonomous vehicles are a scam. This will put it to bed in a heartbeat. One vehicle on the road emitting the type of radiation at very, very low speed. So let's say you're doing 20 miles an hour. You don't really need to pump out a lot of radiation from either the LiDAR, the radar systems. But if you get to 60 or 70 miles an hour, you have to pump absolute toxic amounts of radiation to get signals back. So the faster you go, the worse the radiation impact is. So in towns and cities, towns and villages, people are talking about reducing that, already getting you ready to reduce the speed to 20 miles an hour. All right. So they're already talking about it. They're already reducing the speed limits. You've got to get these reduced. The reason for it is because at speed in a city, the radiation from the transmitters and autonomous cars would be so toxic you wouldn't be on the road. However, what about a motorway? Are they really saying that we can't drive these vehicles? Because obviously this radar travels through the vehicle with ease. It travels directly through. You've got the LiDAR that actually fires the signal into your mirror system. The LiDAR images on the right-hand side, they're basically off the top of a battle tank. That is a class 1 laser emitter. All right. So it's at head height. So any pedestrians, pretty dangerous, cause macular degeneration, damage your eyesight. It operates in part of the spectrum you can't see, so unfortunately not like some lasers where you can actually see them and your eyes can protect themselves from them. You wouldn't know that this was damaging your eyesight until you got to the other end of a journey, or you were standing as a pedestrian next to one where your eyes would start to go blurry and burn the back of your eye out. Its speed, potentially this is a class 2, class 3 laser, because obviously you need a faster pulse system, you need more power density coming out of it. This would be toxic. So if I had 20 or 30 or 40 vehicles on a motorway, you wouldn't be able as a human to be in the vehicle. Same as I showed you before about the systems on the battle space. So what I was really saying is autonomous vehicles, total scam, unless they just don't intend to have humans driving vehicles or being on the road. Now, who wants to give up that vehicle or give up driving so that somebody can use your tax dollars to build autonomous vehicles? Absolutely bizarre.
Right, and this is the way they're selling this, of course, is the wonderful new Internet of Things that virtually, everything from your toaster to your refrigerator to your car is part of the wonderful Internet of Things. Well, from what you're sharing with us, we might as well call it the Internet of Cancer. Is essentially what's being proposed, an omnipresent, ubiquitous Internet of Cancer that is an Internet of surveillance and Internet of potential lethality, right?
It's exactly what it is, and what people have to understand. Governments are spending in funding this crap multi-millions of pounds of taxpayers' money, investors putting money into these scams. I mean, you only have to look at Tesla. Tesla's in $10 billion worth of debt. I think their burn rate's something in the region of $200 million a month. When people work out that those electric cars will give them testicular, bowel cancer, liver cancer, bone cancer, do you think they're going to really want to buy one?
Yeah, I would think not.
Well, I would think not. So, I mean, so that whole thing's a scam.
Well, okay, let's jump ahead here if we can. We've still got some things to cover. We're looking at I think photo 31.
Yeah, photo 30. Photo 30, we're on 60 gigahertz here. This is really interesting. This is where it gets really scary.
Oh, it's not scary yet, folks. Stick around.
This is the really scary bit. Right, 60 gigahertz. This is quite an interesting frequency. It's attenuated in air. What I mean, it gets stuck in air. Right now, microwave radiation stuck in air. That's a pretty interesting concept. And what it means is it actually gets stuck in the molecular structure, or the molecular structures, or the atomic structures in air. All right, and it's really interesting. Anyway, what we're saying, this is part of the spectrum that's absolutely pretty useless to anybody who wants to send a signal across the air, because it doesn't go very far. But what I'm going to tell people, if you go to the next image.
Okay, so we're on photo 31.
Yeah, you're on 31 now. Now, I got some images, not these particular images. I got some people in the US military who sent me some images. This is really interesting. I invented a reactor, by the way. I was involved in a project, carbon reduction, carbon capture and storage project, which I knew was a complete fraud, because I go straight to the fraud thing. I look for the business opportunity, and I'm pretty straightforward. I cannot lie. And I was involved in this project, and I knew the whole thing was a complete scam, carbon capture and storage. So what I actually did, I invented a reactor to disassociate the covalent bond, the carbon dioxide bond. All right, so we looked at some ideas about how we could do that. I looked at some reactors. I knew a scientist at Strathclyde University who'd already built a couple of molecular reactors in a lab. Went and had a chat with him. Anyway, I came up with some patents. And those patents were to build reactors which we could put into flues, power station flues, and we could break the carbon dioxide as it came out the top of the flue, instead of actually putting it in and compressing it, washing it, scrubbing it through these amine scrubbers, and then compressing it and sending it down a pipe. This would break it down in the flue. I thought it was a fantastic idea. Well, it was a fantastic idea. I do have quite a few. But went out to try and raise the money to do it, and we just could not capture, we just couldn't. And at the time, I knew quite a lot of people where we could raise the cash. Nobody was interested. And the reason why they weren't interested, because carbon capture and storage is a way of offsetting the capital equipment that needs to be decommissioned for oil and gas in the North Sea.
Okay, so well, help us understand. I'm sorry to cut you off on that thread, Mark. I'm just trying to keep folks focused on the 5G rollout. Can you help us understand what we're looking at here on photo 31?
Well, this is 5G, and this is one of my inventions.
Oh, we have you to thank for this, do we?
No, I didn't expect it to be used for this particular. This is masquerading as a telecom system, because I knew how to pour a frequency into a radiator to cause the disassociation of these covalent bonds. But I also knew that you needed to have a cooler pipe, because obviously the radiator gets pretty hot, and if you don't have a cooler pipe, then what happens? It'll burst into flames. So you've got to put that much energy in at a specific frequency, at a certain pulse rate, right? So if you look at the picture on the right-hand side, you'll see a cooler pipe coming down from the radiator. Now, these are 5G transmitters fitted to telegraph poles in the USA. I had some really interesting ones sent to me by some US government aid.
Mark, do we have any idea where in the U.S. these polls are? The particular ones we're looking at?
I'm not really sure. You'll find these are in the USA, by the way. I haven't seen anything like this in the UK. These were sent to me. They were sent to me by people in the US, but not the ones I've got from the US military. I haven't shown these ones here, but these ones, what they show is telecoms. These are 5G telecoms units fitted to telegraph poles in the US. But what I'm going to do, draw people's attention to the middle picture. The middle picture's a flue. So what you do, if I heat these radiators up, what happens? The airflow, if you look underneath them, you'll see the fin system, and what they are, it allows me to drag air up through these radiators, yeah? That then takes air through those radiators and allows me at 60 gigahertz to change the molecular structure of air. Yeah? Because these are molecular reactors. These are not, they're masquerading as telecommunication systems, but these are molecular reactors. I can tell by the shape. Yeah?
So when you go ahead to photo 32, you can see exactly how that breaks down. Is that right?
When you go to page 32, now O2 is one of the biggest telecoms companies. Quite an interesting name for a telecoms company, isn't it? O2, in plain sight. Well, what I'm going to tell people, at 60 gigahertz, right, I can disassociate the O2 molecule at a certain pulse rate. I'm not going to tell you yet because that's a pretty interesting bit of information. And at a certain pulse rate and a certain power density, I can disassociate the oxygen molecule. And that then allows those oxygen atoms to attach to other oxygen molecules and cause O3. O3 at 50 parts per million will kill all biological life.
All right. So the question that is going to come to people's minds on this is, all right, we're looking at these systems being attached to poles, and how much damage to the atmosphere, to the air we breathe, can be affected, over a large area by these poles. I mean, we understand that 5G towers, the small ones, will need to be like every 200 to 300 yards or so. Do you think that what you're looking at in these photographs that have been sent to you, that can have a significant effect on the atmosphere, the breathability of the atmosphere, across the planet? That's the issue that you're bringing up. Is that right?
Well, the weapon system, the 5G weapon system that we have, is a target acquiring weapon, all right? But it's part of the 5G mix. This particular weapon system is basically the gas, because obviously the images I got some images from some military personnel in the US who've been fitting military equipment and said, Mark, can you have a look at this? Because this is 5G. And I said, well, yes, I can have a look at it. It is 5G. And they said, what is it? Because it's not telecoms. And I said, no, it's not telecoms. I says, they mean to gas you.
So that could be localized. It could be locally delivered to an acquired target in a small area. Is that what you're saying?
Gas. Yeah. I can gas anything where that gas. If I change the molecular structure, and that equipment looks to me exactly like a molecular reactor. If I change the constituent parts in air, I only have to heat them up and oscillate them, and your hemoglobin won't pick them up. But let's say I go the full hog, and I've got the technology refined to the point where I can actually change it to O3. It will kill all life at 50 parts per million. So consequently,
within the range of it.
The range of it, they're putting them every few hundred meters in cityscapes, hanging on telegraph poles in the US.
Can I interrupt here for a second, please? Because when you're talking about O3, is that ozone?
That's ozone, yeah. That's
okay,
ozone.
Okay, all right. Now,
Yeah.
ozone. I have an ozone system in the house for pure air purification. Okay.
Yeah.
When it's and ozone is what you smell right before a thunderstorm. Correct?
That's right. Yeah. Well, what happens? It's the energy in air breaking down. That's the energy in air breaking down the molecular structure, and that's how you start to sense. You can get that tingle, but that's not. I mean, if you're talking about, parts per million that are so insignificant, right? You can just sense them, but at 50 parts per million, like I said, it will kill life.
Okay, now let me understand it this way, all right? If we're talking about taking the ozone and making it into H3, or H3 is ozone, all right? That this reactor is taking the oxygen, breaking apart the two oxygens that are there, and then the two oxygens go off and find themselves in three oxygens, because there's protection against what is breaking them apart when they've got the three. Cohesion, three. Okay, so at that point, it's not the ozone that's killing you, it's the fact there's no oxygen in the air. Is that correct?
Well, it's the O3 is an astringent, so it's basically a disinfectant, all right?
Yes.
If there's O2 in the air in your locality, obviously you're breathing that in, but if I poison the air with this O3 at 50 parts per million, I'm going to be able to the kill grid's going to be a lot larger, if you know what I mean.
Absolutely. So what we are actually saying here, and I don't want this to be missed by anybody, is that this particular system that he is speaking of is in fact a weapon to gas you. And these are being put up, at least in some part of the United States, because it was United States people that came to Mark and said, Mark, do you have any idea what this is? And just because of the divine guidance of the universe, Mark happened to have been the one that created it.
Yeah, that's pretty ironic.
Okay.
Oh yeah, I know that.
I've created an invention to crack carbon dioxide. But as soon as I saw this picture, I thought, shit, I've seen that somewhere before. It's one of my inventions. So that's how I knew it was a molecular reactor. I mean, you talk about mad. This is mad. It's absolutely mad. I mean, I get a picture of a product that I've actually know quite a bit about, and I go, shit. Obviously, the whole weapons background. This thing I invented had nothing to do with weapons. I mean, I was obviously just trying to fix an issue with carbon dioxide. But I knew what it was, and obviously, then you look at this Ofcom, going to allow people. They're going to give these telecoms companies this access to this 60 gigahertz. Well, obviously, I've done quite a bit of research in relation to certain frequencies and how they affect certain molecular covalent bonds. Well, 60 gigahertz gets stuck in there. It's not very good for telecoms at all. It only has one purpose. To disassociate molecular structures in air, which is oxygen. Consequently, it will kill you. What they've done, they've built instead of building a camp to put you on a train, to take you to the camp, to gas you and kill you, they've actually put the gassing equipment round your home. And not only have they done that, they've also rolled out 5G, so the crematorium, they can pour that much microwave radiation into the environment from all the smart and IoT devices, part of this densification 5G. Not only are they going to gas you, they're going to cremate you at the same time.
All right, this is pretty hard for most folks to take in.
Yes, Mike, but it is what is happening. Okay, now, Can I ask one other question here, Mark? Initially, somebody showed you something that was on their military. It was military telecommunications or military equipment that was being, this equipment was being put on.
No, what happened, Dave, obviously the assets all belong to, some of these large towers, assets belong to certain companies, right? Some of them belong to the UK government in America. So they're building this equipment, right? So anyway, this person had sent me some of this, some images and said, Mark, what's this? Because obviously these are telecoms, military telecoms people. And I said, it's a reactor to gas you. And they went, well, we knew it wasn't telecoms, but we weren't really sure what it was. And I said, well, no, I said, that will gas you. That will absolutely gas you. That's what it's for. It's a reactor to change the molecular structure.
Yeah, and it's as you say, Nancy, it's right in your face. And I'm not trying to, deny at all what Mark is sharing with us. I'd like to ask Nancy to address a question that's running in my mind here, which is, all right, when we're looking at the full picture of what Mark is sharing with us today, and we're looking at all of the, when he's talking about 5G as a Trojan horse and everything that has been built into it. So we're talking about a comprehensive surveillance system, control system, kill system that pretty much every aspect of how you would control the populace if you had decided at some upper level of incredibly corrupt evil that you're reaching a point on the planet with what's going on in terms of humanity waking up where it's absolutely necessary to put in place technology that will allow you total surveillance, total control, total kill grid, so that not necessarily that you're going to roll all that out at once, but that you will have every single capability you might need. Oh, let's throw 60 gigahertz in there just in case we want to gas them. Let's make sure that we can, do a 3D mapping so we know exactly what they have in their home and where they're hiding. Meanwhile, we're irradiating them, giving them cancer, reducing their fertility, doing a slow population takedown, and at some point, some nice false flag to allow us to declare martial law, etc. I mean, this is sort of like the full picture we're looking at. And I just like, Nancy, how does this, Nancy and Mark both. I mean, how in terms of the big picture, what's going on? How do we?
I was told about this in 1976. I was absolutely told by somebody who was so connected that this was what they planned in 1976. I've been prepared for this. I have watched them build it, and everybody thought I was crazy. No, I was not crazy. I had an insider's view of what was happening. Now, the fact of the matter is the reason that they're putting this gas system in the United States is because we still have the guns. If you're going to kill people in a controlled way with DEW, okay, it's one thing. But if you've got a bunch of people that are armed and are taking down your system, you can just gas them before they can take it down, is my feeling based on being, a paranoid intelligence officer.
Right, and just a reminder to everybody, when you're listening to Nancy, you are listening to a former U.S. Army energy weapons specialist with above top secret clearance in U.S. Army intelligence during the 70s. So this isn't just some, conspiracy theorist radio talk show host.
Thank you for that. Thank you for that. That's why I love Mark, because Mark sounds a little crazier than I do sometimes.
Right. It's nice to have somebody who makes you look sane.
Yeah, right. Right. I love you, Mark.
Well, okay. We've got about 15 minutes left here. On slide 33, photo 33, with your permission, Mark, I'd just like to share this with people and maybe read some of it aloud in my well-trained mid-Atlantic accent, as opposed to yours, which I love, North of England accent. Anyway, can I do that?
Yes,
the Save Us Now document?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so this is from saveusnow.org.uk, which is a great organization in the UK that Mark has spearheaded. And this is notice to company directors, shareholders, employees, councils, counselors, politicians, media, and others who are ignoring the law, because the rollout of 5G technology is an indictable crime. So Mark is encouraging everybody who reads this. And again, folks, this is on the slideshow. We provided the link. This will become a YouTube that you'll be able to review. But in the meantime, we'd love it if you can follow along with us on this. And so this says, Dear Sir or Madam, I'm bringing to your attention the scientifically established fact that the rollout of 5G technology, hang on just a second, that the rollout of 5G technology is an indictable offense under domestic and international laws and a crime against humanity and the environment. Your involvement in the deployment, deception, misinformation, and cover-up in the wider community, continued support for this crime have been noted. Any further support of this indictable offense provided by you, once you've been informed by this letter, will demonstrate your real intent in regard to this crime. And it goes on to say, we demand you to cease and desist from your role in the rollout of 5G so that the main architects of this criminal enterprise can be held accountable, while those who have been coerced into involvement can be seen to have acted in less serious roles. So that's, that is within the UK legal system. It's very applicable as well under US law. So this, and we are sharing at Radio 5G a number of different tools that some very effective groups throughout the US are using. For example, ehtrust.org, Take Back Your Power, Empower Movement. These are all really excellent activist organizations that are putting the tools in our hands to be able to fight this, because it is not too late, but the clock is ticking. So, and speaking of the clock, we're at 12 minutes before the end of our show, and there is some material we want to share with people about a 5G Wake Up Sacred Activism music tour that is starting within the next few days. I'd love to be able to share. But Nancy, could you help us just sort of wrap up the impact of what we've been discussing with our friend Mark Steele?
Well, I think Mark has done a phenomenal job in his group with putting together this slide presentation. It's pretty awful, but it's okay because we can fight this. It's not, and we don't have to fight it. We just have to make people aware of it. Because
Nancy, can I just come in
yes.
there? Yeah, can I come in there? Because it's really important. What people have to understand, this is a 20, obviously I'm laughing half of the way through and people are thinking he's crazy. Well, I am, most scientists are, most inventors definitely are, so I'm definitely crazy. The reason why I'm laughing, right, I am absolutely 100% sure, you have my word on this, we beat this, we smash this, we are far too early. God put me in Gateshead for a reason. The expertise I have is not surpassed by anybody. So consequently, I was in an area, if I'd lived 2 miles away from where I live today, I wouldn't know. I wouldn't have known what was going on. But we are far too early. So I've already been through the mill. 2016 we found out. It's now 2019. And what I'm going to tell you, we fight back. We are the resistance. We are the people that stop this. We only have to wake up a very, very small number. This is a crime against humanity. They have rolled out a 24-karat gold opportunity, and we must pick it up, because there is absolutely, they've broken every single law that was ever written. They have broken every contract, every rule, every regulation that was ever written. And we can use that. We are currently gearing up in law. It's called Let Justice Be Served Though the Heavens Fall. Let justice be done though the heavens fall. And that is a very, very interesting. It was a legal case that happened in the UK where we abolished slavery. The British judicial system stated, even though the government said it would bankrupt the economy, destroy the business opportunity, the British courts found that slavery was abominable. They stated it was not correct and that it had to be stopped. And that was the statement the judge said. Let justice be done, though the heavens fall. We have a crowd justice fund. We are taking these criminals to court. That's the next one we're taking through the British judicial system, and we will see them squeal on the back of the illegal activity that they have created. And believe us, the more people that are involved, the more people that see what's going on. The court in the last 3 court cases, I was 3 days in court the last case, the court was absolutely rammed to the ceiling. We couldn't get people in. In fact, they did it in the old Moot Hall court because obviously the first court we couldn't get enough people in. So we had it in the old courts where there was well over 120 people in. And even the judge said, where's the mainstream media? Where are they? Because they expect them to be there. Well, as this thing rolls on and the higher we go into the court system and the more we go on the offensive, they can't stop us getting this information out. And we are here for the fight back. We are the resistance. People have to wake up. This is a fact. Do your own research. Everything I've said tonight, I can substantiate it in fact and in science. We are the fight back. And we start here today telling people, talk, tell, text, get the information out. Our numbers are growing stratospherically and they cannot stop us. We are like a virus. This information's getting out and they can't stop it. Even though the mainstream media are trying to cover it up, we, through a groundswell of information through social media and groups like this, we'll get this information out. We'll stop this.
Well said. Thank you.
Yes, that's all of it right there, Mark. Thank you so much for that. I do want to share with everybody that Radio 5G is a joint project of Cosmic Reality Radio Network and the Sacred Academy of Geoenergetics. And if you go to our main website for Radio 5G, that is 5G-KNOW.com, 5G-no.com. We share all kinds of information about the scientific evidence about 5G, about all the great groups, activist groups, the progress that's being made. And also on the SAGE website, again, that's Sacred Academy of Geoenergetics. The acronym is SAGE. That's geo-energetics.org. We're sharing with you there's a Sacred Activism music tour, which is being launched right ahead of our very important meeting in Taos, New Mexico, with the county commissioners. They are voting on whether or not to allow 5G to roll out in Taos. We have a number of expert witnesses. And ahead of that, we know we've shared with you some pretty devastating information today. It can be a kick in the gut. It can be even depressing. But if you listen to what Mark and Nancy were just saying, the timing is God's timing here. This is divine timing, that Mark was in place to see this, that Nancy and I connected and started this. And so many groups are popping up all over the country, here in the U.S. and the world. And we are doing our part. We're doing a music tour called the Jai Gaia Sacred Activism Tour. And Jai is the Hindi word for victory. Gaia, as many of you may know, of course, is the name for the sentient reality of the biosphere of our planet. Began as a scientific theory and it has been validated. And there is our Mother Earth, essentially. So this is Victory to Gaia, the Jai Gaia Sacred Activism Tour. I have a background in sacred chant, and I've been a human rights activist for a number of years as well. So we are having on June 9th at Unity of Taos in Taos, New Mexico, a beautiful awareness-raising and heart-activating event, and we'll be having it in Boulder, Colorado in July, also in the San Luis Valley in Colorado in the middle of June, and rolling on across to Southern California, the rest of the country, and probably overseas as well. And this is about a relationship to Mother Earth. This is about activating the heart, inspiring us with hope, and unifying us so that we overcome our differences. And as we say on our poster, this is understand the danger, activate the heart, and celebrate the hope. So please tune in to our website, geo-energetics.org, for information about that. We have a Facebook page as well. Again, that is the Gaia, that's Jai, GAIA, Sacred Activism Tour. So we're coming up towards the end of our time here. And I'd like to ask Nancy to just give your sense of this, of what you see happening, and how this all comes together with your view. And again, mentioning to everybody, 4G is already out there everywhere. And of course, as we know, the remarkable mineral shungite can provide protection against harmful EMF and Wi-Fi in the 4G level. And there is, Gaia is at work. The divine is at work. So I'll hand it over to you, Nancy, for a couple of minutes of overview on this, if you would.
Well, it comes down to knowing. I mean, the people that we're dealing with, that Mark has been dealing with, are ignorant people. However you want to, say why they're ignorant. But they're ignorant. Ignorant is not having the information. The information that concerns 5G, concerns the gassing of America, all of this type of thing is so unbelievably sci-fi related. But in fact, sci-fi is real. Now, when I was studying World War II, and particularly the extermination camps, I kept going, my God, why? How did this happen? I mean, what happened? And I kept focusing on the civilians, the German civilians. How could they have let this happen? What was happening? On the people who went into trains, outnumbering the guns from the Germans, and still they got on the trains with their family and everybody and just, went. Okay? Well, for all we know, they were all drugged out because there was a lot of drugs. They knew about the electromagnetic ability to make people docile just because of a frequency. We have no clue what might have happened to all those people that just one after another went to their fates without any kind of attempt to save themselves, which is not a human reaction. And now I've watched for 45 years this happen here. It took them a lot longer, but they are in the same position as they were in World War II. We did not win that war. It's 75 years ago. We did not win that war. That war has continued. It's a group of people who believe that the state, the corporation, the organization is more important than the individual. And it's just, we have to just understand it, because I think once we've got the knowledge not only of what's happening, but the knowledge that we can stop it, because we are the human family. And what they're doing, it's like, I think that Mark would agree, is that, and Michael would too, because the 4G is already killing us. But what we've got now is an opportunity forced on us by 5G to wake up very quickly in time to save ourselves from 4G, because 5G is never going to happen. It's inconceivable.
Right. Yeah. Yeah,
Thank
exactly.
You,
well, that's, that story, as Mark called it, a 24 karat gold opportunity. Because 5G is so horrific, and because they were forced to rush it into place, because the light is just breaking out in too many places, and they know they need to clamp it down now. I mean, as you've said, Nancy, this is the story that is a golden opportunity. And for the Game of Thrones fans out there, in the final episode, you had Tyrion Lannister in front of the council that need to choose a new king. And he says, what unites people? Is it flags? Is it armies? Is it gold? And he says, no, stories. He said, there is nothing more powerful than a good story. Nothing can stop it. No enemy can defeat it. And that's what 5G is, the awakening story, the absolutely unignorable story that all of us, just as fellow human beings who cherish our families and our freedom and this beautiful planet, we can come together in this amazing awakening that must happen and is happening. So we are at 12:01 p.m. here in the beautiful mountains of Crestone, Colorado, where I'm coming from today. I want to thank our good friend Mark Steele for being with us and for all your amazing, brave work, my friend. So bless you and thank you for that. Yeah, and of course to my amazing co-host Nancy Hopkins. And this is Michael Henry Dunn signing off on Radio 5G, a Cosmic Reality Network production. God bless us all. See you next time, folks.
Thank you for listening. May it be.
Let it